Hey, 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 welcome back. Welcome back to the Scorpio channel. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. There's a thunderstorm on the beach here in St. Augustine, so the internet was real wobbly. I'm hoping that we make it through. It seems like it's good now, but understand if it just goes off, understand what's going on. All right. Anyway, I hope everyone's having a good night and enjoying the first few days of the new year. Might feel like nothing's changed. A lot of times a few years go by like that is I feel like if you don't do anything. And trauma will make you not want to do things, get into a bad relationship, and when you get out of it, it kind of takes a few years for you to thaw out. you know that's what it feels like I don't want to date ever, but it's not that you don't want to date. It's it takes a long time to heal from those situations. So what happens is that you see a lot of people are afraid to actually get into relationships because of that energy. And really, it's not supposed to be that difficult. If you're coming from a balanced place, it's easy. But the thing is, the world is very imbalanced, right? I mean, we're asked to work a certain amount of days to support ourselves. So right then and there, out of balance, because you have to drink enough water during the day. You have to take time out to meditate during the day. You have to put in self-care. Well, I mean, if you're stressed out all the time, it kind of seems counterintuitive, right? So we have to get to a place of balance. And why I say that is, again, shadow readings are all about teaching you how to get balanced. It's more than just what is your person thinking. Though we always look and see that. What is your person thinking? What are they doing? What did they do? But it's going deeper than that. And it's, why are you attracting this person into your life? What is the spiritual significance? Because either way, when you change, you force the relationship to change. Now, you might not get what you want, and then what you want might be, I want this person to grow the freak up, but you will avoid negative karmic consequences. So understand there's always something to learn is what I'm trying to get at. You never lose. You either get what you want, the relationship, or you learn. And that's what it's supposed to be. Okay. Now, I want to look and see what is the energy that you need to look at just for yourself, nobody else. And then we'll look at your relationship after. But really, it's all about you. What do we want to look at? Now, I've been doing this the past couple of days. And, sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's the same. But it's been kind of the same, I'm not going to lie. But let's see. What does Spirit want us to look at? Let me just pull random cards. Not even gonna look. 1, 2, and let's pick this deck. Let's see. 1, 2, and this deck. Be as much of a surprise for you as it will be for me. There, and one more from a different deck. And this is just you. All right. Merciless forgiveness, regret. And Spirit says, okay, thrive to do your best and don't worry about the things beyond your control. I'm going to read it all when I'm finished. Your words have power beyond the infinite understanding of your planetary mind. Cleaning and animals. Okay, well, what I'm feeling is the underlining energy is merciless forgiveness, needing to forgive. And it's because what'll happen is when you don't forgive, it blocks all blessings from you. And so the issue is not your work, and it's not like it's not like that you don't have talent, or you're not going to do well in your job. The issue is that you need to forgive, because spirit's thing is like, don't worry about the things that are beyond your control. Like, what you do is that you are good. However, there's a lot of anger and resentment due to, like, and I don't even think it came from this person at first. I feel like you came into the relationship with it, so you might have needed to forgive your mother or your father. And so now this is a reoccurring karmic pattern, is what spirit's saying. And what'll happen is it comes out in your behaviorisms, and where like might find you have like OCD behavior, like a little like wanting to control, wanting to clean, wanting to make things perfect, wanting to, and also wanting to like seclude yourself. And seclude yourself would be like hang out more with your animals, to like be around more. So you might find like it's just a way of isolating, to be comforting. And so what spirit's saying is, you don't realize how, when we really need to forgive, how that'll play out. So what spirit wants you to look at is that it's like, what can block you? It's never what can you not create. You can create whatever it is that you want to create. And we always look at that. However, it's like, what will block you? You're the alchemist of your life. It's like, are you still holding on to anger? Are you still holding on to resentment? A little bit, and you would know, because you'd say, well, is the money like coming in? Are you emotionally fulfilled? And also, I feel like you don't realize, maybe when you're angry, you might curse a lot, or you say things, and spirit saying, you don't realize how much your words really are spells. I mean, it's not witchcraft. It's your words are spells. I mean, that's what prayers are. You know what I mean? It's like, if you wanna, some people call it spells, some people call it prayer, some people call it, but your words have power. So if you're like cursing all the time, you don't realize that you're attracting negative energy. You also don't realize, and see, if you need to forgive, then and you're holding on to anger. Well, hey, it's not uncommon to ruminate and to like think about what this person should have done, what they should have done, and to kind of be stuck, to be like, fuck you, like kind of that energy. And the spirit saying, you don't realize, because it's keeping you blocked. And so again, the reoccurring karmic theme is to forgive. So you might see people, again, not just the person that you're connected to, not just family members, but even friends, maybe even acquaintances, like just not treating you well. And you're like, why? And so, of course, obviously, you would get mad. That's the natural thing to do, because you would be triggered. And the trigger is that no one's respecting me, no one likes me, or no one, it kicks up a lot of, feelings and emotions. And spirit's saying, again, the emotions. So we don't want to be overly emotional, is what spirit is saying. It's like, that's what happens when you haven't healed. Now the emotions are a good thing. And so that's saying that you're an emotional person, and sensitive people are emotional, but the energy needs to be channeled into purpose, is what spirit's saying. Because right now I feel like you're a little concerned about your money. That's really the focus. And I feel like money is going to be a little up and down. So when money is that way, then there's a sense that you're not secure within yourself. And so it goes back to, you're spiritually blocked And spiritually blocked means that you need to forgive. Otherwise, you're going to see your blessings blocked, is what Spirit is saying. Now, you might think that that's foo-foo, but your words are spells. When you're angry, you're not present. When you're not present, or if you're angry, you're not relaxed. So it really is all tied in together. And understand, if you've been living a karmic theme, and that karmic theme is the same pattern, well, you would want to obviously heal that. So that's the message for you for today. Tomorrow it may be something else. Now let's look and see. And we can actually also see how that plays out within your wounds. And then we'll look at your relationship. Solar plexus chakra. So I feel like what this is, we know what the solar plexus is. It's all about confidence, right? It's gut, intuition, inner knowing. But what you'll see is that center isn't open unless you're grounded. If you're grounded, that means you're present, and only in the now do you get divine guidance through gut, intuition, inner knowing. The solar plexus is a little brain. So confidence comes from listening to that, acting on that. Trust is something that happens over time, even with yourself. That's, again, I can trust myself. I have that inner knowing, that clairsentient, which is gut, triggers claircognizance, which is, I don't know how I knew that, I just knew. So again, it's the spiritual centers where spirit says, so maybe you don't listen to that or act on it as much as you're supposed to. Fear of failure or struggles with setting boundaries and asserting yourself. So you need to again look at what was your boundaries. You notice is people that have forgiveness issues is they usually very forgiving in the beginning. They overgive, they overdo because their heart is shut down. So they don't let anyone in. And then what happens is they let people in, but they usually let people in then too much. And then because, again, they've been starved for it. And then betrayal happens. And then if they go back into that cycle, this reoccurring cycle where it's like, and that's because the solar plexus, this chakra is all about your fire. That's the God center. But the second chakra is your birthing center, which is about creation. But it's also about relationship, but it's also about trust and intimacy and passion. So what happens is that if you're out of balance, then you can mistake passion as love. Now, the energy, if it's, again, there's many different realities that play out at one time, depending on what you do is going to be the outcome, obviously. But what I'm trying to say is it doesn't need to be a karmic. It could actually be a relationship that you see a lot of forgiveness. The whole spiritual point of it is to learn about unconditional love, but also forgiveness is the hardest spiritual thing that we need to learn. And because if you don't forgive, then there's a sense of not being able to listen to your gut, because it's like, well, I already have too much preconceived notions about who you are, and you can really love this person, but they could have really betrayed you. And so where Spirit's saying, like, this blockage with this person, because it's not, you wouldn't have gotten this person unless you needed to forgive. Like, it wasn't a karmic theme that has played out a few times, is what Spirit is saying. So when we continue to relive like a karmic loop of, oh, here we go again, well, Spirit says you close down your heart. So you're going to attract a person that also has a closed heart, But understand it's also because the lower chakras are closed, also are imbalanced, is what Spirit is saying. So we just see how things get confused because you're trying to feel what it is, soul contract. And the soul contract, not all of them are bad. However, it shows up as reoccurring patterns within the relationships, right? So if it's codependency, we're like, here I go again. It's like I thought I was dating someone successful and they're not successful, or or whatever they perceived, whatever you perceived. So it's always a challenge. And the challenge is like just is like so familiar that it's uncanny. So it's what makes you really perceive that you can't have the relationship, because you're like, well, here we go again. It's the same thing. I know myself. That like if you meet a person that's been divorced 4 times, 5 times, they'll tell you, oh, I already know how women are. I already know how men are. I just know. No, you're stuck in that perception because you're the one that keeps creating that scenario because you haven't healed it. See, what we resist persists. God will continue to give us the same lessons until we learn. Because again, the illusion is that we're separate from our Creator. So when we're stuck in this hell, because that's what a karmic cycle is, it's like I'm living in the same fucking situation. It's like it's just different people, different scenario. Maybe it's a different job. Maybe it's a different lover. Maybe it's a different friend, but it's the same theme. And that theme is what makes you perceive that there's something wrong. That's the devil, by the way. That when that continues to happen, that's a negative spirit. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. Well, guess what? The spiritual experience means that there's fragmentation there, and that there's also like negative energy. Negative energy isn't just your thoughts and your emotions. It's negative energy. It's what attracts. So soul contracts are what binds you to that pain. And so there's again, like part of a soul agreement made before this life. These lessons often push you to face unresolved issues and grow in love, purpose, strength, and resilience. So you know that there's not, this is a nice way of saying it. But so forgiveness, it's like I'm not forgiving. When you don't forgive a person, but you love a person, you continue to live the same thing. So you might have inherited that, like where you watched your mother marry like your dad, and your dad was an avoidant, and you wind up now married to an avoidant. Like you're reliving that person's life. And so ancestral karma plays out that way, family karma plays out that way, and we don't even have to inherit it. We can actually just, have that soul contract from past life. Again, the lessons that we didn't learn that are crossed over. Well, we live many lifetimes, and it's all about the attachment wound, which is, look, soul contract, attachment wound. This is all about codependency. It's all about both parties feeling inadequate, both parties feeling like there's something wrong, but together they feel whole when things are good, but when things are bad, things are really bad. So there's no balance. See, the second chakra, no balance. So, but there's passion, but there's no balance. So again, usually, again, it just shows up as difficulty forming secure, trusting relationships because of fear of abandonment, because both parties were abandoned in childhood. So they're also, again, and fear of abandonment and rejection may manifest as emotional distance or clinginess, codependency, like I said, and trouble fully opening up due to the past neglect. So again, reliving that karmic theme, which is that your parent grew up, so it's because of not forgiving. When you can forgive and get to a place of unconditional love, you don't expect the person to be any way, you know. Now it's really hard to be in a relationship where you don't expect them to, be any way. But what it is like you're learning what unconditional love is. It doesn't mean that you have to be with this person. What it means is you have to forgive in order to move forward to get what you want, with or without this person, and usually it should be without this person, and that's the thing. A lot of times there's still so much love there that there's an anger of, why can't you just get it right? Kind of like that, where again we see it play out like, I can't have love. I can't have love. Attachment wounds and soul contracts is all about codependency. We always know that one person is giving everything on an emotional level and the other person is financially, and both parties wind up being checked out. There's no passion over time. There's trust issues over time, mainly because the person doesn't show up emotionally for the other person. So there's a sense of detachment where now the person that's holding the relationship together on an emotional level feels drained. They're not getting what they want. They're being abused. They're usually like being cheated on, and that's because there wasn't boundaries set in the beginning. So that's the problem with the soul contract, because it's all about betrayal. I can't get close to you because of betrayal. So that betrayal happened, like I said, at first in their childhood. However, they keep reliving it, and they add to it, and which obviously causes a lot of like hypervigilance when you're in a relationship with someone that you can't, that when you don't trust, when you've been rejected and abandoned and made to feel like you're unworthy as a child, what happens is you become hypersensitive, and that means you're tapped in way too much to the other person. And see, trust is something that happens over time. But if there's clinginess, and again, because the person emotionally didn't get what they needed, where they now are overgiving, well, like I said, this is how they recreate the self-fulfilling prophecy of, I always get rejected, or I always get betrayed, I always get victimized, because they're unconsciously recreating it themselves. But it's because of the soul contract. So soul contracts they can last a long time. But let me tell you, it's like both parties are not happy. It's held together with resentment, guilt over time, because, at first, like I said, the person doesn't show up. And then no one wants to be in a relationship like that. It's like it's like you're alone. And what happens is it's just like, the hypervigilance creates just a reoccurring, like, self-sabotaging thing, where if you're in a relationship now with someone that you're so tapped into them and you care so much, like I said, you're teaching the person not to respect you. Like, you don't have boundaries. Like, you're not a person anymore. You become more like a mother. Like, it's not that you're not a person, but you play the part of everything except for what the part that you really want to be, which is a partner, which is a lover, a partner, of someone that shows up for each other on an emotional level, that gives to each other. It's just kind of like a relationship where both parties are there, but they're checked out over time because they're emotionally not getting anything. Otherwise, when they are, they're just both angry because after a while, when nothing is getting addressed, it just stays in that energy, and that's how people get really stuck in being angry. And where Spirit says it all starts with forgiveness. It all starts with forgiveness, and that's what you need to focus on. It doesn't mean taking this person back. What it means is doing what you need to do for yourself. Because when you do what you need to do for yourself, then chances are you'll get what you want, like it's just not with that person. When you heal, we'll pull to see like what energy would be. Listen, it's like if you heal, like again, Queen of Cups tells me on an emotional level, that's somebody that is, if their cup is full, they can give. And it's that their heart is open, that they can give. And it does show me that, yeah, you know what? It's like you'll be out there and you'll be dating again soon. I just feel like no one that serious. And that's really, it's not a wrong thing to do that. Because I think if people get so into codependent relationships, it's because hey, they don't really 100% know their options. They tend to just want to be safe. Remember people that grew up feeling rejected and abandoned because, hey, their parents were in a trauma bond relationship. Then, like I said, it's like it's for you to go out and enjoy life, find life, and date a lot of people. It's okay if they're a Knight of Cups, as long as they're taking you out and and you're having a good time. It's learning how to like date, not become so serious. Now that doesn't mean that you have to sleep with everybody. What it means is like almost like when you're dating, you're keeping it light. You're learning to like just see what you really want, instead of going into like a whole codependent serious relationship, because you might find that if it goes into that serious relationship, you both get comfortable, and then what happens is over time the person gets bored, and then you relive that heartache. And a trauma bond doesn't mean that the person isn't cheating. You have two people that are checked out. One of them is usually cheating. The other person is tending to ignore the fact that the other is cheating. So it's not good. Spirit says again, wonder, protection, confusion, suppression, source, abandonment, and time and attention. So we look at your inner child wounds to see again why those certain things. And obviously if abandonment, we pulled that already before, but it matches up, and that's no time and attention. But not just that, if someone's suppressing you, or you're suppressing yourself, then you didn't have your natural unfoldment process. But a child that spends a lot of time alone, or they feel like, that no one's really there for them, or they feel abandoned, well, understand they tend to be very imaginative. They tend to be very in the astral level of the mind, and that's where source is. And so the child that survives thrives, right? They're creative. But I feel like you did grow up in an environment where, if the parents aren't around and not really giving, it is confusing. Because again, parents' job is to protect. And what happens is it robs, cards. It robs the innocence of the child, because children are innocent. They're not supposed to live in survival mode. They're not supposed to feel like they're abandoned. They're supposed to feel loved. They're supposed to feel nurtured. They're supposed to feel protected, for sure. I mean, otherwise it is confusing. And so then you're not discovering the wonders of you, the wonders of the world. It's like there isn't. And so children need to have that. They need to go out into the world and explore. That's how they form their own ideals about life and what they want. You know, it's like you always ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's what what they've seen, what they've perceived through their lens, through their imagination, through their, and that's the thing. If you grew up feeling like abandoned and not loved and rejected, well, clearly, then there's always a fear of having that happen again, especially in a relationship, and becoming hyper vigilant, and then also because of that hyper vigilance, becoming very codependent. Because you're exuding a lot of your emotional energy and just energy onto the other person. So you're investing a lot. You don't realize it because it feels so good in the beginning. But then what you're realizing is over time that you're not getting it back. You're not being treated the same way. And like I said, and then that is what makes, like again, where it's like I show up for you, but you don't show up for me. And then what holds the relationship together is a lot of negative energy, is what Spirit's saying. And that's really is what a soul contract pretty much is. It's being bound together. But over time, it's like through like anger and resentment and guilt and shame and victimization instead of unconditional love, And that's why they say there's a fine line between love and hate, where Spirit's saying it's like that's the issue, where now what you need to do is warrior of light, which is use your passion to fight for what you believe in, to stand your ground. So, with this person, I don't even, and, I think it's not about being with the person. I didn't even look to see whether the person was going to come back. I think I didn't even know. We was so caught up in the codependency of it. It's like, and the reason why I feel like the relationship, you'd feel like you were one person. You know what I mean? So we have to look and see like how bad that would be. But what Spirit is saying is it's like understand why the relationship dynamic is what it is. And so like when you are with somebody that you really love, and it's codependent, it's like this. I think what it is that it's hard to stand your ground, right? It's hard to feel like it's hard to have boundaries when you love somebody a lot. And, and Spirit saying it's like you have to have passions and hobbies and other interests to help you do that. Otherwise, your focus is more on feeling bad for that person, or you wind up putting yourself in that person's shoes without help, but without trying to do it. But you do so much that you empathize with them so much that you don't hold your boundary because you're like, well, it just feels good. I don't care. I don't want to fight with the person. I'm just going to give in. And Spirit says you can't do that because you teach a person how you want to be treated, and codependent people feel like one person like emotionally is not getting what they need. And it's usually the person that's giving a lot. And it's because they never hold their boundaries. They always give in, the Spirit saying. So the answer is not one yes or no. A lot of times with these relationships, you get to choose. It's how you play it. It's like that's why they're karmic. It doesn't mean that it always has to be miserable. You have to have, you have to stand your ground. And part of it is to, release the limiting beliefs that no longer serve you so that you're not really codependent. You don't have to, You don't need anyone, that on an emotional level that you know how to feed yourself. Otherwise, the relationship could be a good relationship, is what I'm feeling. Well, pull for it. But that's why I feel like, again, the codependent relationship doesn't mean that there's not love. What happens is over time, see, there's as so much expectation in those type of relationships, because it's like, oh, this is my person, my soul person, my twin flame. They're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And spirit says that's in your brain, that it's like in fantasy land and in a perfect world, but that's that you're getting a person that's awakening your wounds to help you release like the beliefs that no longer serve to support you. And you grew up in an environment where you didn't get what you needed because you grew up with parents that were like in a trauma bond. And you're here, it is, you're about to enter your own trauma bond if you don't play this right, is what spirit's saying. It's like, it's up to you. Where here it says take a leap of faith, bold actions, like your risks are going to be rewarding right now. I feel like that's just within your life, but it could be with this person. And so, like, because I pulled transformation, and transformation is, when there is codependency and there is this unconditional love, it's the way that you play it. So really, spirit's saying it's like it can be um transformational thing to help you let go of who you think you are, so you could actually become who you truly are. And that is if this person does the right thing. I mean, we didn't look at that. We looked at everything else, but we didn't look and say, "Oh, well, what is this person going to do? Can they step it up to the twin flame level?" Because we see, hey, they were karmic. We understand why that they were karmic. We understand why you again attracted this person into your life and what this person represents. But what is this person going to do? Like the most important thing, not the most important, spirit says the most important thing is your healing. Like, sorry. And here, merciless forgiveness is a big thing. It's a big deal. Like, again, childhood wounds, the codependency. My parents couldn't be there because they were caught up in their own drama. And understand, if there's codependency, that means relationship issues, money issues, usually addiction problems, a lot of other things. I want to work things out. I knew it. I knew that this person was going to work. I don't know how I knew. Twin flame. No shit. Didn't I say? I said I didn't know whether this person was going to want to step it up to twin flame. That means I want to break the family karma, the ancestral karma. I don't want to be codependent. I don't want to be in a trauma bond, but I want to be loved. I want to have a relationship. I want to have passion. I want to have that. I want to do the right thing. I feel empty without you. Please be patient with me. I can see myself with you in the future. So this is this person where they are now. We can say, why all of a sudden? I mean, what has changed? I just always like to look, especially when there's a lot of really changed behavior, because codependency, it's not really like here that this person was a bad person. It's just, it almost feels like that it's really was a spiritual message more on you learning and saying you can have what you want. This says don't listen to other people, trust yourself to know. I feel like if you ask a lot of your friends and vice versa, they're going to say, don't be with this person because of the fact of whatever they did in the past, and what spirit's saying is it's like that. You have to come to your own decision, but it's about forgiveness. So understand, if you told people what this person did, then understand they're not going to really be like, yay, that person's coming back. They're not going to be like that, because they're going to be worried for you. And remember, when you share things with friends and family, well, they remember that. We are alchemists. We transform fear into love and shadow into light. Spirit says that's the reason for the relationship, to alchemize the negative energy, to break the karmic cycle, to stop the ancestral, you know, covenant, which is all the vows that, when you're using your words, like I said, your words are spells. It's like, and when you're like in those relationships, there's a lot of anger. You say a lot of things that you really shouldn't say, and it's because the fear and the abandonment and the rejection, and just those childhood wounds that get awakened again. And so, like I said, and that person's supposed to be passion. They're supposed to be love. They're supposed to be, and instead they're acting like an ass. I don't even see exactly what they did. I don't even remember. I just see a lot of that. Like, it started off right away with what needs to be. And so we always know that that's a twin flame connection, because spirit is saying it's like it doesn't matter what they did, because it's almost like merciless forgiveness is like both parties love each other to a point of forgiveness. Even if you don't want to forgive that person, you will wind up forgiving that person, as spirit's saying, is because it's that type of relationship. It's a divine union where God has designed it. So it doesn't mean that you're not angry. It doesn't mean that you don't hate this person. It doesn't mean you feel it. It's a hard relationship because it awakens everything. But this person is gonna come back. Does that mean that you're gonna let them in that easily? Probably not. Well, look, but probably not, because they're the twin flame. There's a runner and a chaser, and then they change. So we're almost like, by the time that fucking runner fucking comes back around and they come for you, you're like, oh, go fuck yourself. I don't want you now. It's like, you're pathetic. You disgust me. You're horrible. I hate you. And it's like, and you think about it and you're just like, you're just an asshole. Like, and it's because they deliberately do things to, they want to stay low vibe, usually, the runner and the chaser. So you're in this phase for a while, and the low vibe is just, I want to sleep around, and I know what type of relationship this is. I know the type of person that you are. You're not going to let me do that. You're not going to let me, be a loser. And like, and pretty much. And so, and then finally, by the time that you're like, well, fuck you, I'm tired of it, I don't want to deal with it, then that person's like, oh, well, you're the best thing since sliced bread. And you're like, well, I'm over it. And spirit says it has to be that way, because, like that, there needs to be, otherwise the person wouldn't learn. Their ego is usually really big too, when they're in that phase of, let me try and get underneath your skin, because I'm pretty much sure that I can get you to do what I want you to do, and then what happens is you get to a point where you're like, fuck off. And then then they think it's a joke, and they don't think it's going to be serious, and then it turns into a whole big thing, because not talking, no communication. Still, you got all those codependent bullshit there, which is, there's no communication, there's no like honest like reflection, there's none. I'm not going to look at your shit. Just emotional insecurity, and just babyish, childish like behavior, and which is really triggering, where I feel like this person, like, when I have to look, it's like it does, it's like I feel like you're on a journey, and like the thing is that this person's gonna come back. There's a fork in the road, and it says it can go either way. It's like where you would take this person back now, um, because there is unconditional love here, but would you take this person back right away? Like I said, I don't feel that. And I feel like the reason why is because you learned part of the twin flame journey is that you step into being the best version of yourself. You master yourself. You become a master of yourself, and that's where you become very disciplined. It's like you don't let your emotions override. You don't let that person emotionally manipulate you. You stay focused on your shit. You work smart. You again, you do what you need to do. Like there's a sense of stepping into the best version of yourself in order to be in this type of relationship. Otherwise, you're not holding to a level. This person comes back after they already blew it. They have to fight to get back into your life. It's not an easy thing. And the reason why is because if you're becoming yourself, life, you become comfortable in your life. So you're not just going to let this person back in. But there's a reason why Spirit says it needs to be that way because that person has a closed heart chakra. That's what happens when they grow up the way that they grew up. So understand this is your twin flame because they're mirroring what you went through and the same exact feelings. However, that doesn't mean you both handle things the same way. Spirit says it's all about like the law of one, reverting back into your original energy of unconditional love. And the only way that that happens is when you see things through a higher perspective. And so, again, source, that's what God is. God is love. When you are in your perfect energy and you're open to receiving, you are in the energy of source. You are in the energy of unconditional love. You're in the energy of the universe. And Spirit says again, and that's the law of one, and that person's your twin flame. So they always say, oh, that's my other half. It's not that they're your other half because there's no such thing. However, there is a synergy. There's a synergy to co-create, right? There's to do something together, to birth something together, because you have to transmute the negative energy. If you grew up in codependency where there's with rejection and fear of abandonment and all that, and it's all this energy, it's negative energy. And so the reoccurring karmic theme is really that one person is in a relationship with a person that's always running, and the other person is always sabotaging the connection. And it's this same thing over time. It becomes this nasty agreement, right? And it's because there is a strong connection. And like I said, in the beginning, people feel like, hey, you are my divine counterpart. But if a person needs healing, you know, and you see how the person is, meaning the person is clingy and they're codependent too. So that means they have a lot of fear. Someone that's going to be a little controlling. They might be a little bit manipulative. So it doesn't mean that it's an easy relationship. It means that you've mastered yourself. So it doesn't matter what that person does. And you're commanding how that person is treating you. And you do that because it doesn't mean that you shut your emotions off completely. But what it means is you don't let your emotions dictate to you. You let your solar plexus dictate to you, which is, again, that gut intuition because that's how you're going to get discernment. And that, so you're always coming from a higher perspective, is what Spirit's saying. Because it's not like it's not a good, could be a good relationship. It can be, but remember, wherever there's going to be a lot of passion, well, then there's a lot of energy. So there's a lot of fire in the connection. So that means triggering. There's a lot of past hurt, right? From the wounds of the childhood and then repeating them. So again, being with your person and they're digging at them, there's going to be a lot of fire, energy. But Spirit's saying again, that's what is, brings that passion, that passion into the relationship. It's like that's what transmutes those negative wounds. It's not just about creating, though Spirit brought that up right before the passion part. It was like, well, it brings you to co-creating the synergy to birth something together, but there's also that passion, which allows for that Kundalini energy to really pierce through that second chakra. The second chakra is all about the identity. It's like, again, what happens is when there's a block within the second chakra, is due to a person's individuality. It's how who they perceive that they are. So they may perceive that there's something wrong with them in a particular area of life because they keep reliving the karmic theme, where again, Spirit's saying that's not your identity. But the person's like, no, it's my identity because I keep reliving it. Spirit says, no, that's not your identity. We go with the flow of life through the passion for life. This is why you have to birth something to create something new. It's again, otherwise, there's always going to be like this, like blockage. There's always going to be a blockage unless you actually transmute that negative energy in the second chakra, which is again the emotional center, right? The emotional center, which allows you then to open up, which the twin flame does, by the way, open up and be able to really have intimacy, which is trust, and kind of relearn what they didn't learn in childhood because the parents were codependent. So they were abandoned. So it's almost like the twin flames do it for themselves, but they also do it for each other. So they do it for themselves by stepping into the best version of themselves, like we saw, to master yourself, but also to like love each other, to open up. So again, and really, so there will be loyalty, right? Those subconscious blocks of what are being healed. And yes, it's a lot has to do with intimacy and there is sexual fulfillment, but the focus really is on the intimacy, right? It's trust. It's opening up. What both parties were not allowed to do in childhood. So it's a difficult relationship because of that. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of emotions. There was a runner. There's a chaser. Of course, now switch things, and it's always after the person demolishes it. And like I said, Spirit, I think, does that purposely, like will hide who you are or make this person like just have a distorted perception of who they are, like by how cocky they are, only to find out that they missed their chance or things aren't the way that they see it. And then, like you said, the runner becomes the chaser. It's just what happens, because in the beginning they just couldn't let you get close in the beginning. And I saw that before. But now the person's like in a place of like, again, regretting exactly, but still feeling you though you're apart. So, you know what I mean? Like this person knows they just love you unconditionally. It's just that type of relationship. There's no logic, really. I think it's all the fact that this person was living their wounds and you have your wounds and you're a magnet due to the same exact, and that the healing lesson was to break the karmic cycle, the ancestral cycle of codependency, and realize that you can have unconditional love with somebody just as long as you again are making sure that you become who you need to become. And that means letting go of the core beliefs from the past, of thinking that you can't have it. That's number one. But also, like you said, like fulfilling your life. A lot of times with codependency, what you see is both parties don't have a life of their own. Like it's healthy to have a life of your own with friends and hobbies and interests. It's not healthy when you get into a relationship and you're just two people, like and every day, and you never go out with friends and you never go out, because the whole thing of a relationship is that, like, if you were with your best friend every day, you'd get sick of them over time, right? I mean, they get on your nerves, but you make it fun because you play together, and a relationship that plays together stays together, and that's what intimacy is based on. So it wasn't that isn't passion. What there is both parties came into the relationship with wounds to begin with. But due to this connection, like I said, the person wants to come back and do the healing. So it's collective. So I'll let you decide whether you can take this person back or not. It's going to be different for everyone. But let me tell you, if it's a real twin flame, you're taking this person back because there's just too much passion and too much unconditional love. There's nothing like it that you've ever had, even though it's a really hard connection. All right, I'm going to leave that there. Hey, Linda. Sorry I didn't see you until now. Oh, I'm so happy that you're a new subscriber. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. And if you resonated with the video, please give it a like. And thank you for sharing your energy with me tonight. I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.